So we're starting pretty late on this one, but you know what? I think this is possibly one of the best shows all around that I've ever listened to. Now, mind you, look at this is 6 hours and 30 minutes, so this would be a week long breakdown of intervals of 30 to 45 minutes to maybe an hour every other day. If you guys want longer uploads, just let me know. I don't mind doing that because it is a very fucking interesting comment. And the way he starts out is just a perfect address to the nation in a sense that's saying, you know what? I am not going to be cornered and put into this group of being in this cancel culture that if my opinions don't align with yours, then automatically I'm going to get canceled. He's pretty much saying, fuck that. Because you know what? If you want to cancel me, go ahead. But I have a right to speak my mind and my opinion. And if there's no other people that can do that, then military guys who have served their country and pretty much sacrificed their lives on the line, knowing that they could have been killed at any moment. If there's anybody who deserves an opinion, I know opinions and everything are equal rights and all that. But these dudes were willing to die for their country, for what they believed in. And that speaks volumes. So when you hear a guy like this say, you know what, I'm not going to give you my straight out opinion, but you know what it probably is, and you know where I'm coming from. And I don't care how much you get hurt because I don't align with, the cultural norm of being accepting of every little thing that's constantly thrown in your face that now because, and, from a personal standpoint, I almost relate with Matt Walsh and Ben Shapiro, and I'm not, no extreme right wingist type of person. I'm not a hardcore liberal person. I would describe myself as kind of like independent, but I want to hear a good conversation before I really make that choice. But before I get into this, you guys who are not familiar with Matt Walsh, he made a documentary called What's a Woman? And, he goes around to these college campuses, and there was a very great interaction with one of the attendees there. So I thought straight off the bat, she looked this dude looked like a woman. And, if you guys get offended by me, the way I say, like, he looked like a woman, this is why. Because he had brought up one of the most greatest points I've ever heard. He starts off by saying that I'm a paramedic, I, I'm in ambulances all day long, this and that, and, I like to, help people and, make sure that, I'm saving lives, this and that. And I don't know if paramedics take the same type of oath as doctors, but Matt Walsh made a awesome analogy. He said, okay, say you get a phone call, say you get a call that, you know, there is a transgender person, let's just say for the sake of argument, a transgender man who's needing help. You don't know what the call is completely about, but you're on your way to go help them. The moment you get there, the man tells you, the man who's transgender as a woman is telling you, I really think you need to take me to the emergency room because I'm having a miscarriage. What would you do? Knowing all the training that you have been given, knowing that you know how to save lives, and a transgender man going into a woman tells you that he thinks he's having a miscarriage. How do you handle that? And this person was just like, zip. I was like, wow. Some dudes are just critical thinkers because usually arguments like that I like just tend to shy away from because you know what? There's really no winning no matter which way you look at it. But that right there, I mean, you kind of had the right side and the left side, and like, well, to his right was like more the pro women, the real women, and on the left were these people that a lot of people keep on associating with just being love bombed, and that's why they feel so comfortable in their organization. But the moment that they stray away from that organization, complete hatred. And so listen to what Kristin Beck, the transgender Navy SEAL transition to a woman then back to a man, has to say about this, because this is somebody coming from his own personal experience. And the way, this is Sean Ryan right here. He is the founder of this and Vigilance. God, I forgot the whole name of it. But he makes some kick-ass gummy bears and a few other cool products. So listen how he starts us off. It's perfect.
Hey everybody, this is the most controversial episode I have ever done. And a lot of people told me I probably shouldn't do this episode because I might get canceled. I don't care. I do not care. I am tired of watching creators and podcasters all over the place filter their content in fear of cancel culture. I'm not going to do it. I never have done it. I'm going to keep getting bolder, and I'm going to keep getting louder on subjects that I think people need to hear about. This episode has changed my perspective on certain issues with the topic, and it also has solidified many of my views on the topic. But my views, that's not what matters. I'm just bringing truth to you guys, and I hope you appreciate it. And if you don't, that's cool too. There's a lot of other channels out there. For those of you that do, though, thank you for sticking around. I hope you guys like this one. Please leave us a comment, like, and subscribe. Follow and subscribe to us on Spotify and iTunes. Leave us a review. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chris Beck to the Sean Ryan Show. I love you all. Enjoy it. Learn something. Spread it everywhere. Everybody needs to hear this. All right, cheers. One last thing. If this video does offend you and you're part of that cancel culture crowd, before you have a complete conniption fit, go get a camera, turn it on, video your meltdown, because nothing warms my heart more than watching the cancel culture crowd have a complete meltdown. Post your video on Twitter, tag Sean Ryan 762. I'd love to see it. Enjoy the show.
Transitioned to a woman, he even had his chest done, represent female breasts, and the hormones, but he soon got off the hormones and had the breast removed. And he committed, but he knew, man, I was kind of played into this when I was going here for counseling with this woman.
Chris Beck, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you.
Been a long time coming. You nervous?
No. It's my life. I'm really talking about. So how can I be nervous about? Well, I'm a little bit nervous, maybe.
I get nervous for every one of these things.
Yeah.
Every single one of them. I just want to make sure that I produce the best product, that is the most accurate representation of you. Yeah. And so I'll give you a quick introduction here. 20-year Navy SEAL, retired veteran, 13 deployments, Bronze Star with Valor, Navy Com with Valor, Purple Heart, founder of Mindful Valor nonprofit. You transitioned to a female from a man, then you transitioned back to a male. You're a motivational speaker, and your goal right now for coming on the show, which we spoke a lot about, is you want a platform to speak to the SEAL community. Do you want to go into that a little bit?
Yeah. So I make mistakes in my life. I think we all make mistakes. We're human, right? There was, and you mentioned that I transitioned from a male to a female, and that's not really truthful. You know, that's not really what happened when I look back on it. And there was a time when I thought that was what I was doing, but it's definitely not the case. It was an imitation. You know, it was, it wasn't right. It was a mistake. It was something that, hey, if it was private, then yeah, whatever, you know? And it's something that should have never happened. And I'm not a female. I was never a female. A male can't be a female.
Well, we're going to get to all of that, and I want to understand it because I don't understand it. And I just want to be honest with you. My personal goal with this interview, for the record, I think this interview has the potential to be the most impactful interview that I will ever do. And my goal with this interview, I hope it is, because I think there's a lot of things going on in the world today that there weren't 20 years ago.
Yes.
And I think it's building a lot of confusion. And so my goal is for any children who are thinking of transitioning or identifying as the opposite sex as they were born, whether they want to do it or not, that's not for me, but I just want them to have a full picture of what that process is like, what it did to you, and what it did to your mental state. And I want that entire community to be able to come to this episode on this show and hear your story and help them come up with the right decision for them, if that makes sense. And so, Chris, before we do start, I just want to say, I know you've been through a lot of shit. You've been through all the combat stress that almost everybody in that chair has been through, you know, unique to you. And then you've been through the transition stuff. And I know that was extremely hard on you. And so I just want you to know you're in a judgment-free zone. There's no any of that going on here.
I hope somebody starts judging me.
But
sometimes we need to get a smack in the face, you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes we need to be told to stop.
Yeah.
You know, or cut that out, or hey, are you sure?
I've heard you can be quick to do that at times.
Who, me?
Yeah, I have.
Punch people?
I heard a story about you in Danny's pub, but I won't get into it. But hey, everybody starts off with a gift on this show. There you go.
Thanks, man.
Open it
I'm
up.
supposed to open it right now. Nice.
Those are Vigilance League gummy bears made in the USA.
Gummy bears.
That's right.
What are they?
They're legal in all 50 states.
They're 420 bears?
No, they're not 420 bears.
Oh, man, come on.
They're just Vigilance
Can you give
League.
me the good ones?
Well, maybe
No,
we
I'm
can
just
talk
kidding.
about that after the show. But yeah.
That's cool, man. Yeah, I make my own gummy bears.
Do you really?
Yeah.
What do you make?
Oh, some good ones.
Oh, you make the magical
but
gummy
they're all
bears.
organic. So I take a 1 cup of fruit juice and a couple tablespoons of lemon juice, and then you put in the beef gelatin, and I think that's like 1/3 of a cup or something. And it's not very hard. There's like 5 ingredients, you know, and it's all organic, you know. It's all the stuff natural, you know, nature. So it's not the chemicals and other stuff.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
You do all kinds of stuff out there. We had a good talk at breakfast.
The gummies, I'm into the homeopathic and herbal stuff. And so when I make the gummies, I always I make these tinctures out of I make goldenrod tincture and stinging nettle tincture. And I make all these different tinctures. And I add those tinctures of various types to the gummy bears. And so that gives you all the nutrition and vitamins and minerals. You know, I have a drink that I can make that's like 1,000 times better than Red Bull or any energy drink ever. You
Really?
know? What's that?
Really?
Oh,
What's
yeah,
in it?
Yeah. It's a seed. No, it's not a seed.
All right.
It's basically some of the herbs and stuff I do. But
Okay.
a lot of it, the really big stuff is cinnamon and honey. So if you mix cinnamon and honey into a warm drink, just that alone is a huge energy boost.
So at first, the first time I heard him on this episode, I thought, man, this guy kind of brags a little bit, but you know, let's see what it's all about. And so the more you listen to him, he's not bragging. This dude is fucking smart. So when you hear him talk about all the projects he's been a part of, first off, you got to remember two things right here. Chief of, that is the big dog of the platoons. Nobody can do shit without his say so. Purple Heart, hope you guys know what that stands for. But you know, when he's talking about this stuff, just listen to what he has to say, because he's a smart dude.
It'll last a lot longer than any of the energy drinks because it's not sugar. So Red Bull and all those other ones are real sugary.
Yeah.
And sugar is like a real high that you get. It's very short, and then you get lower than you started out. But if you take honey and cinnamon, especially those two combined, they work together. And so that cinnamon and honey together with some other stuff that I do for vitamins, and wild lettuce is really good because it's a painkiller too, which I help. But I take all these natural things, I put them all together, and it makes this amazing energy drink that you can't touch. The problem is you can't sell it, because how would you take all these natural things and it's really good stuff and then make it marketable and put it in a can and then stick it on all these shelves and have the production of it? You know, it doesn't work. So it's scalability, it's production. So all the other stuff is not a moneymaker, so nobody wants to do it. But I can give you all these recipes of a whole bunch of stuff that I do, and if you use these things, you're going to find they're way better than anything you can buy in the stores.
You know, this conversation, the conversation that we had at breakfast about sugar and energy, all that stuff, I can tell you are an extremely intelligent human being, very innovative, and I know you are on some very special projects in the military, and I want to get into some of that. But let's just start things off with childhood.
Okay.
Where did you grow up?
So how did I get to here?
How did you get
learning
here?
all this stuff? So I was born in Long Island, New York, and then I was a real little kid. I was 4 or 5 years old. We moved to Pennsylvania onto a farm, and we had 100 acres, and cows, horses, pigs, chickens, and all the farm stuff, and a big old pond, and this huge hill I had to climb up to get to the back 40 acres to take care of the animals up there. And the 1970s on that farm, and I'm a middle child, which is important because I think that has to do with a little bit of it. And people might not believe it, but the middle kids definitely.
I've read
it's
this.
5 kids, yeah, and I was in the middle. And so when I was growing up, I had a lot of fears because it seemed like I was always the one, getting the beatings for anything that happened at the house.
Why do you think? What do you mean
tough.
beatings?
So if something broke in the house, and it would just be a paddling or a belt or something, and then it was pretty much all the time, And then it went wrong, I'd get it. When I was in school, I was getting paddled all the time, and went to Christian schools too, and so they didn't mind the spoil the rod, spare the child,
Yeah.
That was the other way. Yeah.
So no matter
who did it, I would get beat.
you were the one getting beat.
Yeah.
Nobody else got beat.
My brother got it a couple times, but I would get it bad enough that then he'd feel bad and buy me a fishing reel. And I can't tell you how many fishing reels he bought me, or some stupid stuff he would buy to kind of apologize, which, hey, that's cool. Thanks for the fishing reel. I don't fish. I don't know why he kept buying me fishing reels. I'm not really a big fisher. But I lived in fear, like, all growing up. I remember the only dream from my childhood is me on this huge chessboard with these giant stadium bleachers all around it and this big high walls like a hockey. And my dad was the only one that I recognized out of the whole thing, and he was yelling down at all the chess pieces on the board to attack me. That's my dream as childhood. The only dream I remember. I had it a lot because it all kept coming back. It was just fear, man.
When did the fear start? Like, how young? Can you remember?
I was pretty little. I don't know, like second or third, like real little, like young.
Very young.
Grade school.
Were your parents close? Your mom and dad?
No.
Was your mom
I
alive?
think I saw my mom and dad like hold hands once in my life.
That's it.
Yeah.
Were you close to your mom?
No, not at all.
Was she abusive too?
Almost, no. I mean, she broke some wooden spoons on me once in a while, the cooking spoons. She'd hit me with them and break them, but it wasn't really that. It was like, I don't think she ever hugged me as a kid. You know?
Yeah.
And I think that kind of affected me a lot too. That makes me kind of the same way. I'm not a real big hugger or toucher. I don't like to be near people.
Yeah.
So I think I don't know if it's hereditary or something that got passed on to her and that she passed it to me, was the fact that I just don't like to be hugged or touched or just stay away from me, you know. I'll do the bro hug where you go
Yeah.
checking for body armor and guns. You know,
Checking
that's
for
why
body armor.
But I do that. When I was in a motorcycle club, I used to wear body armor all the time and I was always gunned up. I'd have a couple knives on me, at least 2 guns, and body armor. That's how I rode all the time. Whenever you see me on my Harley, I'm gonna be gunned up. You know, not as much anymore because the stupid gun laws are so whack. But armor and guns, you know, and that's how I ride. And it's the way I always felt. Everywhere I go, I gotta be armored up. And only recently I learned that armor is ineffective. You know, the armor of God is much more effective. You know.
Yeah, we had some discussions about that.
And I'm not bashing my mom or dad, you know, don't mean to, but it was the 70s, you know, and we're growing up on a farm with all those animals, and my dad was a school teacher, and my mom was a homemaker with 5 kids. And so the food we ate was basically venison for meat, and the milk, we do powdered milk, and she'd water it down, you know, or get the, you know, other milk and would do it half and half. And it was just, I got really used to drinking like really watery milk in my cereal. So that eventually I just put water in it. I don't do milk in my cereal if I ever eat cereal.
Still
so
to
it was
this day.
very, very, you know, the working poor, you know. And that's what I think most of America is divided into, is the working poor and the poor, and then all the elites. And there's not really very much in the middle. And that might be a conversation for later, that the division that we have in America isn't about race and color or any of that stuff. It's just rich and poor, you know.
Yeah.
And that's the problem we have. Let's talk about that one later, though.
I would love to talk about that because I think you're right.
The biggest problem I had growing up was that isolation. Was I didn't feel I was ever touched, and I never really knew what it was like to have love, you know, of what it would really be like.
What about with your siblings?
It was different for them. I don't know what I did wrong, you know. I don't know why. You know, that there's always a kid in the family who's like a black sheep. There's always a kid in the family who's like the whipping boy, or unless you're an only child, or maybe there's 2 kids, you know. But if you have a lot of kids, there's always one kid that takes most of the abuse.
I'm just curious.
I'm number 3 out of 5.
Why do you feel that it's because you're the middle child?
This is very important to this.
Well, the oldest first, and you can see it just in photos and video.
When I say this is very important to this is where his desire to start becoming a woman kind of really hit. So it happened before he was entering the military.
And everything that they took of the kids. So tons of pictures of my older sister, and then some of my older brother, and then they start going off, and then almost none of me. And then the sister after me, you know, some photos. And then my youngest sister has a lot again. So it's kind of like they got burned out in the middle, and then they realized, oh my gosh, they need to make it up. You know what I mean? I think that's it.
It does make sense.
You know? And or there was just so many kids, and it was 3 of us, and I was a young boy, and I had a lot of energy. I mean, if there was such thing as ADHD back in the 70s, that was me. I mean, I got paddled every day in school. I'd go to the principal's office, and he had me, it was marked, you know? And
what would you get paddled for?
Just being loud or making jokes or doing something. I was incredibly bored in school. It was the most boring time of my life. I hated it. I could take any test. I could take a test right now, and I did it. Air Force person that was having a real hard time passing these tests, and in a relationship with her. And so she said, hey, can you take this test? And I was like, well, I don't really know the material, but yeah, I'll take it. And I passed the whole thing, and she couldn't pass them. She took it like 3 or 4 times. And I didn't read any material, didn't do anything, took the test, passed it. So I'm really good at taking tests. I'm really good at analyzing and critical thinking and really looking at stuff. Well, then why did I mess up so bad, 10 years ago? That should be the first question. If I'm that big of a thinker and I critically think and I really analyze stuff, how did I fall into the trap of transgender for me? Now, for some people, it might be good. It might be the right thing for them to do. But it's not the right thing for probably more than half of them. And I can explain that later.
We'll get into that.
But
we'll get into that.
It was rough growing up like that because I'd felt that I always had that pressure on me to make sure everything was perfect. Because if anything happened wrong around me, or if there was ever a mistake, or if I ever made a mistake, it was definitely going to happen. So I was always trying to fix stuff, and I was always trying to make everything right, and I was always making sure that I lived this perfect life and didn't have a mistake because I didn't want to get beat on, And I think that was like a big part of why I messed up sometimes in the SEAL teams. It's because I couldn't allow a mistake. And I would do that even in the new guys. I was really hard on the new guys.
Hold on.
I mean, even Goggins would talk about that.
Let's rewind. Let's rewind.
Okay. Goggins made some comments about that in his book, Don't Hurt Me. David Goggins, cool dude.
Really?
Very cool
I've never
guy.
met him.
Yeah.
But
he was in one of my platoons.
Let's rewind a little bit back to childhood. Did you ever get to the point where you stood up to your father as you got older? 16, 17?
I blew a bubble. I was chewing gum one time and I blew a bubble and I got punched in the face and I fell backwards in the garage door and broke the garage door. So I wasn't going to stand up to him. He was like a football player, a lineman in the 60s and was going to play with the New York Jets. So yeah, he has some skills.
Yeah, sounds like it.
So, I could take him now. He's like 85. I'm just kidding.
Is he still up?
Yeah, he's around.
He's still alive?
Yeah.
Do you guys
And the
talk?
only time I've ever gotten mad at him was the other day, like recently. And he's like 80-something years old, and it just like, I still don't understand him. I don't understand what he's doing. And even all through my whole life, I can't figure him out. It's I'm just trying not to do what he did.
Yeah.
It's a lot of talk about love and a lot of talk about taking care of family. And then I don't see it in the actions. An example, just right now, he kicked my brother out of his house. And my brother's a seasonal worker and doesn't work during the winter, because he's union, so he can't work anywhere else. If you're part of the union, if you do another job and you turn in that and they find out, they're going to kick you out of the union, Yeah. And so my brother's not working right now. And then he just got kicked out of the house and he's homeless now. My brother. My dad did that. I don't get that. Why would you do that to your son?
Have you asked him?
That was part of the conversation. And he started getting real super angry at me. And then we started kind of arguing. And at that point, I was like, I started turning back into that caveman in the old days. I wanted to punch him in the face so bad, just like he did to me. And I was so angry because of what he was doing to my brother. It doesn't make any sense. Well, I'm trying to get him to stand up on his own feet. Well, during the winter, how about you do it during the summertime when he's working and he has money? Yeah. And I asked him that, and everything that came out of his mouth, none of it made sense. And so I'm pretty much disowned from my whole family now, except my brother, because he's living at my house.
Older or
So I
younger?
gave him a room. He's an older brother. I gave him a room at my house. I'm trying to find him something. I keep giving him money because he has nothing, and now he has no place to live, and it's made everything harder for no reason. That's the family I grew up in.
Damn.
And it sucks because now I'm talking about all this on national TV, and it feels like I'm bashing my dad and throwing everybody under a bus. But I just want them to know how much this hurts, and what they're doing just doesn't make sense.
You're just conveying your experience.
Yeah, that's how I grew up. I grew up with a father who would kick out his own son in the middle of winter when he knows he has no money. To teach him a lesson? When I was growing up in 10th grade, I left home, and I lived in the woods. I bought a motorcycle, And my dad, I guess, had an accident with a motorcycle, almost killed him when they were younger, my mom and dad. So she hated motorcycles. She still does. And so I bought the motorcycle. I didn't buy it. I actually worked for it. I was working construction in like 10th grade for this guy. And we were in his garage loading gear, doing whatever. I saw this old motorcycle in the corner. It's all dusty and covered part with tarp and really messed up. And I was like, hey, Tim, how about that motorcycle in the corner? You know, how long would it take me to work? And I'll work that off. And he was like, all right, that's cool. So a month of work and you can have it. So I worked for a month and got the bike and worked on it and fixed it up and got it running, got it tagged and had it all done, and then rode it home. And then I was like, you will not have a motorcycle in my house for my mom. And I was like, all right. So I went back. I didn't even live in a house at that time. I lived in a shed out back that I made into a bedroom with no heat, no water, no nothing. And near Buffalo, New York, I lived with no heat.
Holy shit, Chris.
Because I didn't want to live in a house. I couldn't live in a house. I isolated myself on purpose because there was so much. So I was living in that shed out back of the house, and I brought the motorcycle home, and she said, you can't live here. So I was like, all right. So I packed up a bag, and I left. I was still in school, and I was in wrestling at the time. It was like October time period. So it was snow on the ground. I had a motorcycle, and I was riding around in snow. I'd go to wrestling practice and shower there, and that's how I did everything. And there was a halfway house for prisoners up the road. It was for prisoners, ex-cons, and some other stuff. And so I'd go over there and wash dishes, and I could eat with all these ex-cons and all these other people that were in this halfway house or this little shelter. And then I would get done eating, doing my stuff, and I'd go back up in the woods and live in the trees. I had a lean-to I built, in some pine trees.
Damn.
And that lasted for a while
How long?
My dad. I think it was a couple months. It was through the winter. And then my dad came out and he told me, I said, your mom's crying a lot and really wants to come back. And I was like, can I have my motorcycle? He said, yeah, you can have it. I said, all right. I'll keep living in the shed. So, but that's part of who I am too, is I'm very stubborn. If I know something is true, if I know something is right, I'm going to do it. That's like an Admiral Olsen story too.
Yeah.
When I started working on mission planning in SEAL teams, I built a whole mission planning system for the SEALs.
I didn't.
In the 90s. In 1999, they were trying to automate the mission planning systems for the SEALs. And Cowboy Wells, he knew I was like in the intelligence stuff, and I did a lot of mission planning, and I was into computers because in those days I was building my own computers. So Cowboy called me up and he said, hey, I want you to come up to WorkCom, the SEAL team headquarters, the HQ, and help me with this program because it's not working. It can't. The company we hired. He told me all the stuff that was going on. He said, "This isn't working. We need somebody to come up here and help us out." He said, "I know you have the knowledge," and I was like, "All right." I never asked for any orders. I was recruited to every command, even Damneck.
Well, we'll get into that. Let's rewind.
So they recruited me. I went up there and built it, and they were arguing with me about the system I was building. They didn't like it, or they thought it wasn't automatic enough. It wasn't that, and they were gonna kick me out of. They didn't understand it, and I was fighting with them. And the admiral was sitting there. I said, "This is the right way to do it." I said, "You can do it my way, and the way I'm doing it right now, it'll be right." Me talking to my admiral, and I was at E6 at the time. So if I know what's right, I don't care who you are. If you're the president, I'm going to tell you,
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I'm doing right now, is that even when I was doing all the transgender stuff, thought I was right. Actually, I didn't really push it very much. All I was doing was defending people, just saying, hey, it's just a person. I wasn't pushing the transgender stuff. I was just pushing the fact that that's a person, and no matter what they're going through, if it's a mental health issue, if it's a physical issue, it's a sexual, whatever it was, it's still a person. And you all are killing them and doing whatever and all this, madness against transgender people. So at the time, I was thinking the same thing, and so I was defending them. I was saying, hey, that's a lot of what I was doing, and it's all I was doing. I wasn't really defending transgender. I was defending humanity. I was defending the fact that you're a human. You know what I mean?
I do.
And it's the same thing I do all the time. And what I'm doing right now is doing the same thing. I'll defend transgender people. I'll defend non-trans. I'll defend anyone if you're being wronged.
That's interesting that you bring that up. So let's rewind to childhood. You you have a history of you stood up and you defended the country. Then you
Yeah.
said you stood up and you wanted to defend the trans community. Now you want to defend Christians. Let's rewind to childhood. Did you want to stand up for your siblings?
That's all I ever did, I guess. Yeah.
Purposefully,
I guess
though?
it would.
Like
it was.
you
I would purposely
knowingly
do it too. I
were
would take
standing
it.
up for
I'd be
them.
like, yeah, I did it. Because I knew that they couldn't take it.
So we'll go ahead and cut right here for tonight. It is 3:15 where I'm at right now. Well, 3:14, going to be 3:15. This will be pretty much the first half hour of it. Like I said, you could tell it's 6.5 hours long, but every bit of it is just so extremely interesting. This dude he's brilliant. And, what he went through was a case that we hear of way too often, and that is childhood trauma on top of then joining the military and then being tasked of being, the chief of your platoons, then being sent to the Pentagon for planning and strategic and, and critical, thinking. I mean, this dude has the best story on here so far. And so, yeah, you guys will definitely dig it. I'll be uploading this later on today. But, yeah, I hope you guys have a chance to get into it and listen to it. So, if anybody is, yeah, hope you guys have a wonderful morning up till the time I upload this, and until tomorrow, till today, hey, peace out. I'm out, and I will see you tomorrow.